Hi, my name is Andy Fickman, and welcome to the Sarah O'Connell Show.
Welcome to the Sarah O'Connell Show.
Andy Fickman, welcome to the Sarah O'Connell Show. How are you today?
I am very well. How are you?
I'm really good, really excited to talk to you actually. And to get started, I want to talk about you grew up in Texas, but can you tell me what did you aspire to be? Obviously, you're a legendary filmmaker.
So, I grew up in West Texas, Midland, Texas, which some people might know West Texas, Midland, Odessa from the movie and the book and the TV show Friday Night Lights.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
That is my hometown. And growing up in West Texas, my father was an active member of the Midland Community Theater. And my earliest memories truly were being backstage where he was starring in productions like 1776, Fiddler on the Roof, Room Service, Plaza Suite. So I grew up, that was my early, we all have that sort of first kind of 5 years old. You sort of, I remember being backstage with the cast and crew, and that was it for me. I knew from that moment I wanted to be involved in the entertainment industry, and everything I did in Texas was sort of geared towards the day I graduated college and I moved to Los Angeles, didn't know anybody, and sort of said, I'm just going to do this.
That's amazing. So now I'm going to fast forward a lot, and I'm going to start with Heathers the musical. I saw it the other day at the Other Palace. I've got the book. I've been there. I've got the program, the brochure.
I love it.
Beautiful. Can you tell me how you first got involved with that production? Were you a fan of the original movie?
So one of my favorite movies. So when that came out, I always loved all the John Hughes movies. And then this movie came out and flipped John Hughes on the side. So I was a massive fan. And around 2005, two wonderful producers came to me, J. Todd Harris and Andy Cohen, along with Amy Powers. And they said, do you think Heathers could be a musical? And I said, yes. I didn't know how, but I said yes, and immediately went to one of my creative partners, Kevin Murphy. Kevin and I, along with Dan Studney, had done Reefer Madness, the musical. And so we had just finished that, had done that. We were just editing that for Showtime at the time, the movie with Kristen Bell and Alan Cumming and Nev Campbell. And we had such a great time. And we had been wanting to work with Larry O'Keefe, who had been a part of our Los Angeles had a small group of creatives that Larry built Bat Boy out of Los Angeles. And we were around the time we were building Reefer Madness. So everyone knew each other. And Kevin and I went to Larry, got Larry, and Larry needed to think about how to make it work. And the biggest challenge was Heathers was a very brilliantly conceived black comedy that ended on very dark tones. And
Really
musically,
does.
we wanted to end on hope. And so we ended up being able to go in and flip it. And we did a Act One reading. At that time, we had the wonderful Kristen Bell, who had starred in Reefer Madness for us. And we were doing a reading for the creative team of Heathers, Dan Waters, who wrote the movie, and Denise Denovi, who produced the movie, and Michael Lehman, the director, all brilliant. And right before the reading of Act One, Dan Waters runs up to me and he says, Andy, I got to tell you, I watched the movie last night. I don't know how you guys are going to do it because it's so dark and all my great characters die. I don't know how you're going to pull this off. And he was taking notes the whole time. And then at the end of Act One, he comes over, and I think he took so many notes, he must hate it. And then he goes, no, I was writing everything I loved, and you figured out the problem. In the movie, if you die, you just die. In a musical, if you're Chandler and you're dead, that doesn't mean you're off stage. It means you come back in a big persona and probably a big song. And so that's what that changed everything. And we ended up workshopping it multiple times, opened it in LA, and the show sold out and we had an amazing time. And then very quickly we were offered to transfer to New York off Broadway, and we did. And We had a good solid run there. And then we brought the show down. We didn't know what to do. We did amateur rights, we recorded an album. And then one day I get a call from Paul Taylor Mills with the other Palace. And Paul says, we're interested in doing a reading of Heathers. And we were so confused because we thought, how will anyone in London know anything about this 1988-89 movie? How will they know our show? What will they care about? And he said, well, the music has made its way over here. And we did that reading in 2017 in the studio space at the other Palace. 2018, we opened with the wonderful Carrie Hope Fletcher and Jamie Muscata, and we have pretty much been home in London ever since.
Yeah, it's incredible because, as you say, some of the scenes really are very dark, traumatic even, and the fact that you managed to balance that with humor, and as you say, these characters, bad stuff happens to them, but then seeing them interact in scenes where nobody else is reacting to them at all, it's really entertaining. And I've genuinely got to say this. So I went on vacation over Christmas because it was my birthday too, and treated myself to going to New York. And I basically just lived in the theatre for a week. I watched so many shows. It was amazing. Then I came back, got tickets to Heathers because I'd wanted to see it for the longest time. Genuinely, the loudest reaction I've ever heard in a theatre. Like from start to finish. I don't even mean at the end, just every single song.
We're so glad you could experience that. Our fan base, who we call the Corn Nuts, are part of our show. We tell new cast members that the audience is the fifth Beatle, that you have to understand. And usually in rehearsal, if they've not witnessed the show, they're in rehearsal and we're trying to tell them when that opens, when the Heathers reveal, when all of these key moments happen, audience is there for you. And I think they usually think it's a lot of hype from me as a director being like, you're going to love it. It's going to be crazy. And they kind of get ready for it. It's not till their first night on stage that they usually say, oh, now I've experienced Heathers. Now I understand the Heathers factor.
Yeah, I was like, have I come on a special night? Is there a fan club in? And then I looked online and I'm like, wow, this is every day. Everyone experiences it. It was really loud and it's amazing.
We want them, when we did the stage capture for Village Roadshow and Roku here in the States, we shot it there. And one of the things I wanted, and I wanted to show the audience a lot because I kept telling people it's a rock concert. And last night, I'm just seeing clips now online, or tonight, not last night, tonight was the sing-along.
Yes.
And I've been looking at clips and cast have been sending me stuff and mad. Like, it's so wonderful to have the audience there participating. And we're getting ready to go, heading back to London to start rehearsals for our second UK tour, and we're extended again through
congratulations.
Fall, so thank you. So starting rehearsals. So I get so excited when people such as yourself get to walk in a little like not sure what to expect and get blown away. Yeah. And I get this a lot from friends who travel over there who say, hey, I'm thinking about going on like a Tuesday night or and it's almost like they say it like, I know it's not the weekend crowd. And then they'll text me and be like, whoa, that crowd. And I think we just want you to participate if you want to. We're not forcing you, but we always envisioned, especially as people started dressing up, there was very much a Rocky Horror Picture Show vibe. And my probably greatest influence as anything creatively is Rocky Horror Picture Show. That was every Saturday night I saw that in high school, dressed up, went with all my friends, saw it in the movie theater. And I thought that it was the best gift that Richard O'Brien had created and that cast had given us, was the show in which I'm a kid in Texas and all of a sudden I'm just having this party. And when we started, we had that effect to a deal with, to an extent with Reefer Madness. But once we started seeing kids dress up in New York and coming in costume, by the time we got to London, So we have fans who have come 50, 60, 70 times. We have kids who dress up in various costumes, have better costumes than we have on stage at times. We have gender fluidity. So lots of boys come in as Chandler and lots of people flip and lots of girls come in as JD. Like, we love that the environment feels it's their show. And we made a lot of changes from New York to London. So the cast, the audience, if they listen to the New York soundtrack, they hear some songs, but they hear the London soundtrack and they hear the new version of the show.
Right. The whole atmosphere was amazing. As you say, it felt really inclusive too. And the Rocky Horror reference at the end, people were throwing scrunchies on stage.
That scrunchies caught us off guard in a great way when we were starting with the original with Carrie Hope Fletcher crowd. That cast was our home base, so phenomenal. They started throwing, and initially it was, from a security standpoint, you're like, what are you throwing on stage? And then it was scrunchies, and the cast would scoop them up. We stopped during COVID, the scrunchies. We were all of a sudden made it very clear, please don't. We were one of the first shows to reopen. Bill Kenwright and Paul Taylor Mills worked effortlessly to get us reopened. We were at the Royal Haymarket at that time, and they worked tirelessly to get us reopened, but we had to say no stage door and no scrunchies. And then when things kind of reopened at the other palace and things started, not that COVID has gone away, but there's a little bit more control to it, the scrunchies returned.
You have indeed. And can you tell me, have you got a favorite song or scene from the show?
Yeah, they're like your children. You kind of love them all. I will say, I will never forget the first moment that I saw Carrie Hope Fletcher sing No in rehearsals. We were running the regular show at night, and then we were rehearsing that song, and I was so blown away by the power of it. And then we decided not to announce to the audience at the other palace. It was right before we were transferring to the Haymarket the first time. We decided not to tell anybody in the audience what to expect. And so we were rehearsing, and then that night, all the creative team was standing in the back. And at that point, we already had a couple of people who knew the show well and had started coming to the show. And as the notes started coming in, you could see the audience that knew the show looking around. Carrie sang that song, and it was a standing ovation in the middle of the show, and it took my breath away. That song always sticks with me. The Kindergarten Boyfriend, on a personal level, always hits me. I probably cried more through that song than any song. And sometimes, in the same way, Tiniest Lifeboat can just get me. So you love them all. You love the fun of Candy Store and how the audience reacts. But those emotional songs always get me.
Every time I listen to a song, I inevitably end up listening to the entire soundtrack every time. Because I need that closure. I can't just start in that one emotional place. I have to go through all of it.
I appreciate that. And, we've been doing this for so long and seen a lot of songs come and go. To the credit of Kevin and Larry, the show still gives me goosebumps. I still get excited. I don't have a sense. I have friends who have directed shows long-term who, when it's time to go back in rehearsal, have a feeling of like, oh, all right, here we go again. I just get excited every time I'm back in Heather's land.
Can you tell me what are the challenges, or what do you love about directing theatre versus directing movies? Because obviously you're in the US as well, and the show's in the UK, so there's that. And normally I'd imagine you won't be on the other side of a planet directing a movie.
Yeah, what I love about theater in general is the intimacy and immediacy of the reaction. So we rehearse it, we're in there, we're building the character, we're a group. And then 6 weeks later, 3 weeks later, 2 weeks later, we open. And the audience will tell you religiously every night if it worked or not. And I love the one time only it'll never be repeated. Whatever the relationship with was those actors on stage and that audience, that time. It's why I love when understudies go up, because all of a sudden I'm like, some of my favorite performances have been that fresh discovery that happened. What I love about film and TV is eventually I will get with an audience, but it's a long journey. I'll develop a movie for a year, 5 years. We'll film it over many months. We film it out of order. Then I sit in an editing room for 4 months, 5 months, and it's a very lonely process. You begin to question is that part funny? What is that?
Yeah.
And then you test it with an audience. And then by the time you show the cast, it's been a year since they've seen it. So you have a lot of time to perfect. You can get rid of all of the bad in a way. You can clean it up. I need your hair a little darker. I want your eyes a little, I can do magic in film and TV. In theater, it's a chair. Maybe you're lucky and you have a table. If you can afford it, maybe you get an extra pair of plates. So going back and forth, it's also an appreciation, because when I'm doing film and TV, it's a night and day budget. And what we can get in film and TV, it just appears. And then in theater, you're like, no, what I'm looking for is a microwave on stage. I can buy it. I'll buy the microwave, but it has to be in the thing. The author wrote microwave. But nothing beats hearing that audience and seeing the curtain call. And to be honest, emotionally, it reminds me back to where my dad died when I was 16. So unfortunately, he never got to experience any of this, which he's responsible for. But I remember that time as a child being in the audience and him coming on stage and taking a bow and the crowd going crazy, and me thinking, my dad did that. My dad created this fervor. So now when I can see the crowd, when our cast comes out and the crowd gives them such love, and we have such a fun curtain song at the end for the audience to join in. That's a high that is hard to beat anywhere.
Absolutely. You'd be so proud of everything you've achieved and all the love and happiness you're spreading around the world with everything that you produce.
Thank you.
Thank you. So your first credited movies were working as a production executive on Gene Wilder and Richard Pryor movies. Did you ever get the chance to meet them or work with them directly?
Oh, well, my first job in production was I was the development exec at Gene Wilder's production company.
Right.
So I was working with Gene directly, and that was a thrill. And then, he was Willy Wonka. So all of a sudden and his movies, Blazing Saddles, Young Frankenstein, the producers, those movies helped define, I think, my sense of humor. And our company was called Pal Mel, and it stood for My Pal Mel Brooks. And so and to meet Richard Pryor and get to work with him, this is great. What was really amazing was I had started directing theater then. And Gene and his producing partner, Susan Ruskin, who was a beloved mentor of mine, who now runs the AFI in LA, they would come and support my theater. So early on, when I was just trying to direct local theater in LA, to have that sort of input. And then I left there. Gene was retiring a bit, slowing down, and I left there and I went to go work for Bette Midler. And her company was All Girl Productions. I was the boy at All Girl. And we did Hocus Pocus, and we did Gypsy and Men of the House. And again, I was continuing to direct. And I left there to go to a company called Middle Fork. And the first movie that I got to develop and got on as a baby producer was Anaconda, which was Jaws with a giant snake, with an incredible cast of Jennifer Lopez and Owen Wilson and Eric Stoltz and John Boyd, and Ice Cube. I mean, we had an amazing time shooting in the Amazon. So while I was directing theater, I was doing Reefer Madness at that point. So on stage. So while I was directing theater, I had this Hollywood day job where I'd be on a set all day and see how that was handled. And I got to watch and learn from so many wonderful directors and producers that by the time I started doing it myself, I felt like I had film school just in real life because I got to do that. And it was really helpful. Years later, on a movie called Parental Guidance that starred Bette Midler and Billy Crystal and Marissa Tomei, there I was working with my boss. I was like, she had been my boss, and now I'm yelling action and cut delicately. And so we're developing another project right now and together. And I just feel like these are such wonderful opportunities to have learned from some of the greatest people in the business, and then have that chance going forward to apply it yourself is just a rare opportunity. I feel very blessed.
It's incredible. And I know throughout your career, there's lots of people, which I'll get to in a bit, which you've worked with several times. And I love how they might later pop up in a cameo, or you'll reference them in a really fun way as well.
Yeah. Dwayne The Rock Johnson, we have been around the sun a couple of times. We first
indeed.
We first went around on a Game Plan and had such a great time. And then we did Race to Witch Mountain, had fun. He did a cameo in You Again with Kristen Bell. And
when you mentioned him in Christmas Again as well.
We do. We reference
with John Cena,
with John Cena. And it was something else in the script, and I laughed and I said, to be honest, if I'm going to reference two wrestlers turned amazing actors, I'd like to reference my two favorite wrestlers turned amazing actors, and that's Dwayne and John. And so it is, I've been able to work with Kristen Bell several times. You really cherish the opportunities when you get to work with actors that you just love. And Tom Everett Scott has been in several films, and I just feel blessed when he's on set. Like with this last movie that we just did, One True Love, that'll come out in the spring, that has Simu Liu and Philippa Sue from Hamilton and Luke Bracey, and based on the Taylor Jenkins Reid novel, and Academy Award winner Michael O'Keefe and Lauren Tom, great cast, and Michaela Conlon. And there was a part that was a smaller part that we knew we wanted to expand, but we just didn't have time yet. And we called Tom Everett Scott and we're like, I have a part for you. Don't even worry about the script. We'll make this part. And he was like, I'm in, I'll be there. And we had a blast. Amazing. And I think I've been lucky. I got to work with the brilliant Thomas Lennon in Odd Couple, and he and I have multiple times done readings and are trying to find the project. Kevin James, I have now done from Mall Cop to Kevin Can Wait, to The Crew on Netflix, to his comedy special. He's also the godfather to my daughter. So I just feel like you see someone like that you just personally love. They're a good person, and you just want to be on set with them whenever you can.
Yeah. That's it, because unlike if you work for a company or something where you're always around the same people on a movie, you're only there while you're filming the film. So you have crew that you love or cast members that you love. It's amazing when you can take them on and, because they're reliable and you just know you work well with them and you're going to get the best out of each other.
Yeah, I think it's all about how to help each other rise to the occasion. When we did Parental Guidance, Billy Crystal, it was based on his original idea, something personally that had happened, and he was not only writing and producing it, but starring in it. And he's one of my heroes when it comes to the entertainment industry. And every day on set, while I was yelling action and cut, I was learning from him. I was, the opportunity to grow from him and Marissa Tomei and it really makes it a difference, because you feel like making anything, film, television, theater, it's all hard. It's all designed where you've got X amount of hours in the day. You always have, it's like like thinking like you're going on vacation and you take like 50 books and you somehow imagine I will read 50 books, and you come back and you've like, I've read 5 pages of one book and just mostly watch TV in the hotel.
Yeah.
And so those things, your eyes are definitely bigger than your stomach, and having pros like that who inspire you make you feel like, okay, I can get through the challenges. And you can also talk to them when there are issues. You can also say, what would you do in this situation? And
Right.
they're gonna talk to you about it.
Yeah, it's invaluable, isn't it? And I also relate to the book thing. I bought a load digitally before I went to New York and just ended up watching the Mariah Carey and Dolly Parton Christmas specials.
This is every time I literally get a backache when I put every book I'm carrying through the airport in my backpack. And I get there and I set it all up and it's so great. I put it right there by my bedside. My wife who's a writer, she brings everything, and our toddler and everything. And then it's just sitting there and being like, oh, hey, here's a movie I haven't seen on pay-per-view. Just gonna probably just watch that.
Exactly. Just watch Elf and Christmas Vacation for the 50th.
That's right. That is correct.
So your directorial debut was Who's Your Daddy, which came out around the time that films like American Pie were really popular. It's been quite a while now. Do you think those kind of sort of sex comedies, if you like, will get a resurgence again?
You know, it's interesting. That was definitely in that period of time where the high school sex rom-com was kind of the height of it. American Pie had set that on, and we did it as independently. And I think at the time about 50 different companies were involved, and people were suing each other for distribution. Eventually, Showtime stepped up and it ran on Showtime, and Universal's home video Screen Media released it. We had so much fun. It was everything I learned. I had a brilliant cast to work with. William Atherton and Colin Camp and Dave Thomas and Patsy Kinsett. Like, it was such an amazing cast, and Lynn Shay. And then, you know, those movies sort of fell out of fashion.
Yeah.
And you know, I believe everything has a cycle. I believe that everything, it used to be with Westerns. Westerns were the mainstay of Hollywood, you know, starting with the sort of silent film era, and then it changed, and then it was flipped back and Westerns were gone, and then 10 years would go away and they'd be like, here comes Western again, or sword and sandals type movies. So those were always great. And, you know, there's a precedent in the sense that if you watch, when those movies back in the day were Beach Blanket Bingo, and then those movies were American Graffiti, and then those movies were, and my friends, Craig Perry and Warren Zide produced American Pie, and some wonderful actors that I've had the chance to work with, like Jason Biggs. That movie was revolutionary at its time because people are like, I love it. Now, you know, as we changes, as comedy changes, which it often does, as comfort levels changes, you know, I've read so many interviews where people say you probably couldn't do Blazing Saddles right now. You might not be able to do Young Frankenstein right now. And so I hope that we find a balance. Comedy to me has always been the voice of reason. What makes something funny is because it's pointing out the ridiculous nature of something. That generally, sure, there's mean-spirited comedy that has its own world that it lives in, but most comedy, Blazing Saddles, in my opinion, is showing the horrible nature of racism, the horrible nature of these things. But Mel Brooks sort of, and Gene Wilder and Richard Pryor wrote, like, those commentary come from a very specific place. And I hope brilliant writers will continue to write brilliant comedic satire, and that they find a home, and that studios and independents will continue to allow movies to get made like that. I hope, just as a fan of movies, I hope to be able to see those.
I always find it interesting. Like, people will pick a film that came out about 6 years ago and say you could never make that today, which I always find laughable. But equally, I think if you took a movie from this year and showed it to people in the 1950s or 60s, they'd be shocked too. So I think it works both ways. We don't need to worry about it until we have time travel anyway.
You were absolutely right, because it is amazing what we can get away with to a certain degree. It's amazing what, when Hollywood, in pre-Hollywood, in pre-Hays Code in the 20s and the 30s, was very risque, which I think a lot of what Babylon is trying to sort of show and put focus on. When the Hays Codes came about, everybody was in a twin bed. And one of my favorite movies, The Thin Man, and I always was fascinated, like, they'd say, "Good night, honey." One would get in the one bed, the other would get in the other twin bed, because God forbid you'd see them in a singular bed. When the Hays Codes ended, and it was still people learning how much could they push, what could they get away with, and every generation asks for something different, and every generation kind of demands the entertainment to show them more their world. And I love that that diversity has an opportunity to be full thought of. When we did Christmas Again, we were so thrilled that our story, which didn't set out to be sort of a Latinx film, it was a story in which we found a great actor to build with Scarlett Estevez, to build our family around. And then we built our family around it. And we love how it came out and love the additional message to it. So it's nice when you can just cast brilliant actors doing brilliant things, and something even more spectacular comes out of it.
I completely agree with you. And everyone should watch all those movies, by the way. Amazing. Now, next I want to talk about She's the Man. It's a hilarious romantic comedy based on Shakespeare's Twelfth Night. I recently rewatched it, and honestly, every line in that film is funny. Just what's going on in the background, the interactions between the characters. So, first of all, thank you for that. I also think I've answered my own question now, but what attracted you to that project?
I had just finished Reefer Madness, and Reefer Madness was at Sundance. And here I had this pot smoking, crazy musical, and every script I was being offered, every script was like cocaine fiends, like morphine madness, you name it. And every meeting I had, people were like, they were like, "So in this movie, she's dead and she has needles in her arms, and we think you'd be the perfect director." And I was like, "Oh." And some of the executives from DreamWorks had seen Reefer Madness at Sundance, and I got sent the script. It was so different, but I had loved Twelfth Night. Was one of my favorite Shakespeare pieces.
Yeah.
I'm a kid from Texas who grew up seeing mall movies. What I loved about Reefer Madness is it was different, and it was a ride, and I had so much fun. What I loved about reading She's the Man was, oh, this is Twelfth Night. We had brilliant writers that we got to work with to even make sure we had more Twelfth Night in. We kept going through and being like, if you get Twelfth Night, you're going to love all these references. They sometimes, we won these Shakespearean awards. They sometimes show She's the Man in high schools in America to show Twelfth Night, which I'm sure Shakespeare's rolling several times in the grave, but laughing, thank you. And then at the time, and Amanda Bynes to me was one of the most talented actresses, both as an actress and as a comedic actor, which is always not, it's very rare to find everything rolled up. And once she and I met, we knew we were just going to have a great time. And every casting choice, we had so much fun. We filmed it in Vancouver. Just by, we were getting all of these great young actors, Channing Tatum, and all, obviously our cast subsequently has exploded. For our major adults, we were looking for the principal, and I was obsessed with David Cross, and we offered it to him, and thankfully he said yes. For the mom, Airplane, talk about old comedies. Airplane was one of my favorite, and Julie Haggerty I was obsessed with. And the studio turned out the president of DreamWorks at the time also obsessed with her, and we tracked her down and we're like, will you be in our movie? And she said yes. And Vinnie Jones was maybe the greatest of it all, because I just thought he was such a cool, like he'd been a football player, and then he was so indie and tough. And so we set a meeting, because I think initially his team had said, we're not sure Vinnie Jones is cut out to do a teen girl rom-com. And I was like, let's meet. And we met with them, and he was it. He's the only person I met with. Like literally, David Cross was the only person I met with, and Julie Haggerty. But Vinny was exactly what we wanted, which was somebody who grounded it with some reality. And he was coming out and he kept an eye on soccer. We had great soccer coaches, but having Vinny there, the cast, most of the teams were college age soccer players. So seeing him on that, they'd look over and be looking at him, and he'd be giving a thumbs up. But so it is still to this day one of my favorite experiences from start to finish. I love, Sarah, you saying that you just watched it and it still makes you laugh.
Really did.
That's
not even occasionally, from start to finish. It's such a funny movie.
That's the test of time. That's what you want with a movie, is that it holds up, and that new audiences see it, and that somebody who experienced it can rewatch it and find that happy place all over again.
Absolutely. Now, Amanda Bynes is so great in the film. Can you tell me how she prepared for what was essentially playing two separate characters?
Yeah, it was tricky, because first you had to, on a practical level, Amanda's so beautiful, you had to find a way to make her look somewhat believable as a boy. And we probably went through just wig after wig after wig. And some of it we'd look at and we'd be like, no, that doesn't work. She's still pretty. Then the thing that we really focused on was we would go and talk about studying guys. And there's a mall in LA called The Grove, great mall, an open air mall. And she and I would go and we would sit and watch guys moving and walking. The scene where she's on the street and she's just walking, like, kind of pretending, learning. We shot that live in Vancouver with some extras, but mostly we just hit a camera and told Amanda follow. And that's just Amanda picking up on the physicality of how guys walked and talked. And it was really a testament to her to have two characters that could live. And I used all of that energy when we had our Disney Channel show, Liv and Maddie. I had the brilliant Dove Cameron, who was very young at the time and with not a ton of credits. And we sat down in my office and we're like, okay, Liv is a movie star. Like, we have to do these two characters. And it all became about body language, and it all became about, like, which one slumps a little bit more, which one talks, what's the vocality that you can do in your voice to help separate the two. So again, that's all Amanda Bynes and Dove Cameron being brilliant actors, helping to do it. And it's not easy. It's not something that everybody just can go do. And I've seen the bad side of it, so I know it takes someone very special to pull it off.
Can you tell me, is this true? Did Amanda recommend casting Channing Tatum after seeing him in a Mountain Dew commercial?
We knew as Channing was coming in, it's a little bit like that. We had always told Amanda she would have sign-off approval on who was playing Duke because she had to go. And we were deep into auditions, and Channing came in and had done Coach Carter, a small part, and he came in and he was up against a lot of people with big credits. And he did his scenes with Amanda, and Amanda turned to us and was like, him. And when she did it, we had also all written down him. And then one of my favorite moments was we were all in Vancouver together and we really hung out together. And we, as a cast, I took everyone to see, I think, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, and we're in the movie theater. And in Canada, they play commercials and trailers, not just trailers before the movie, but a lot of commercials, adverts. And on the big screen came the Mountain Dew commercial with Channing flipping that car, and we all cheered and screamed. Oh, none of us were prepared that was going to show that night. But had we not had Amanda's sort of thumbs up approval, I'm not sure what we maybe would have kept looking or gone back. But Channing is magic. He is Magic Mike. And he came in and nailed it that day. And like every actor, we were just thrilled to have him in the show.
In the bathroom fight scene, can you tell me how much the actresses performed themselves and how much were stunt women as they're throwing themselves around?
One of my favorite stunt directors of all time is brilliant. Her name is Marnie Ng. Marnie is so, she fits in the palm of my hand, diminutive, and she is as kick-ass as can be. And I've used her anytime I'm in Canada shooting. Did Playing with Fire, Reefer Madness, did She's the Man. Marnie really, as much as we had great stunt doubles, Marnie's goal was, what can you do with those actors? And we built that bathroom set. We knew we would need to remove walls so we could get in and see it. And we wanted a just beat down moment between the three of them. And Amanda, Laura Ramsey, who's spectacular, Alexander Breckenridge, who's the star of Virgin River on Netflix, spectacular. Marnie really choreographed with them so we would have as much actor action as possible, and then our three wonderful stunt people coming in. But wherever I could, that is our three actresses, thanks to Marnie making it safe and funny. And the only thing I'll say, adding to the craziness, was in the beginning of that scene, Amanda is in the bathroom listening to Alexander and Laura outside, in the mirror. And I, wanting to keep the spirit of things serious, I hid a fart machine under the toilet. So Amanda gets in the toilet, shuts the toilet. I yell action, and as they're in there, I'm hitting the button, which makes it very clear that Amanda is farting, and everyone starts laughing, and you keep hearing Amanda yell, "That's not me. That's not me." And eventually they discovered the fart machine. I probably added an hour to filming that day, just because I was having so much fun with them.
But it was worth it.
Yep. 100%. Well, I would do it again right now.
Don't need to. I love, by the way, how much you encourage improvisation on set to really get every extra piece of magic you can out of a scene, and allowing the actors to do that, I think, is amazing.
I think when you cast great actor, I think writing is so important, and it's our framework, it's our Bible. But when you cast a great actor, it's like having a musician who could do jazz riffs for a little bit. And when we were doing Playing with Fire, we had scenes where I had Judy Greer, John Leguizamo, and Keegan-Michael Key in a scene. I just turned the camera on and roughly would say, go. When you have Billy Crystal and Bette Midler riffing off of each other, you just waited because you didn't know when to cut, because everything was so great. And then you'd have to, the challenge is, you do something so original and fresh, you have to go back and figure out how to connect it to your editing. So then you might say, okay, I love everything you did. John, can you now just say this line so I can add this back into editing? But it's really one of my favorite things, especially with film and television. Kevin James is brilliant. And as a comedic actor, to watch Kevin on set, you do a take and he'd say one more, do again, and everyone was funny. And so I think it would be a shame to not allow your actors that opportunity. And I like to create a world in which everybody can work and everybody can have fun. And hopefully when they're doing that, you're getting great material from it.
So now we're going to fast forward slightly to 2007, and Dwayne The Rock Johnson, as he was known at the time, starred in The Game Plan. He'd already been in movies for about 6 years. He'd done a couple of comedies and obviously was well known in WWE. But could you tell at that time, the first time you worked with him, that he was well on his way to superstardom, to become one of the biggest stars in the world?
Yeah, when I had my meeting with him, my first meeting, he really, the only thing I knew him from was like Mummy, Scorpion King Returns, or like I knew him from wrestling. Again, kid from Texas. I know NASCAR and wrestling. And we had this meeting. I was editing She's the Man. I got a call saying I'd read the script and loved the script. Again, felt different. The character of Peyton was about the son of my age, about the age of my son at the time. So I liked the father dynamic. And I set a meeting to go meet with Dwayne. First thing Dwayne says when I get there, not hi, not hello. Dwayne looks at me and he says, "Do you like Elvis?" I was like, "Elvis Presley?" And he's like, "Yeah." I was like, "I love Elvis." He goes, "Tell me about Elvis." I'm like, "I'm a kid from Texas. I grew up loving Elvis Presley. I can tell you." And he starts laughing. He gets up and he gives me a big hug. I'm about 5'0" and he's about 18 feet tall. So Dwayne The Rock Johnson hugging me was literally like picking up like a Lilliputian. Like it was like, "Hello, look at you." And I asked him why he said that. He goes, "Well, I love Elvis. And I figure if you loved it, like, I don't want to work with someone that we don't have the same tastes." And we loved it so much, we put his character, Joe Kingman, and made his character love Elvis. I knew the minute I met him, he was the superstar that he is today. On and off camera, it is rare to see somebody who is so gracious with his fans, who is so gracious with his time. He calls my mom Mama Ruthie. When she turned 90, he serenaded her online and made it go viral. Just that's who he is. His work ethic, by the way, very similar to John Cena, but his work ethic is, what do I need to do to make this better? And so he wasn't approaching it with where I work, coming out of theater where I have someone who's, I'm trying, they'll talk to me about Meisner, or they'll talk to me about Stanislavski, or they'll talk to me about Stella Adler, whatever their method is. And we'll spend 2 hours talking about Chekhov. That wasn't going to be Dwayne. Dwayne came in knowing as a performer in the WWE what his job was and how to make Joe Kingman a superstar. He also is the most loving dad. And he, at that time, his daughter was just slightly older, I think, than the character of Peyton. But his collaboration every single day was pure. Whatever he'd come in, or whatever you needed, he made it work. And I'm proud of him and proud of the world discovering him in every chance that they can, because he's just a great person. But it was hard not to be on set and not go, he's a superstar. Like, that is, there are all levels of actors and celebrity. Yeah. But he is a through the roof superstar.
He really is. And of course, the film very much depends on that chemistry between Joseph and Peyton. Can you tell me how long it took to cast his daughter in the film?
So casting was going to be essential. And you're also casting a 6-year-old actress, so the chances are Dame Judi Dench is probably not auditioning for that role. So
sadly,
we got down, so we got down to the final mix. and we had mix and match that we were putting on film. We ended up with about 6 girls, and the 6 girls had a lot of credits. Actually, they had done Disney Channel, like wasn't their first rodeo. Madison, it was mostly her first rodeo. She's from Texas. I think she did maybe an episode of 2 of Barney, and maybe she had like 2 lines. She came in, and all the other actresses are wonderful, and some of them have gone on to great acclaim. They continue to work. There was a seat between Dwayne and I, 2 directors' chairs, and all the girls were with their parents, everybody on the other side. And we're getting ready to do a scene, and Madison comes and sits, just grabs a seat between Dwayne and I. And she looks at me, not just being a kid. She goes, "Who are you?" And I said, "Well, I'm Andy. I'm the director." "Oh, well, that sounds cool." And then she turns to Dwayne. She goes, "Who are you?" And Dwayne's like, "Well, I'm The Rock." She's like, "Well, what do you do?" Like, "Well, I'm an actor. I'm going to be in this movie." And she's like, "That's cool." Could care less about both of us. And as she sat there, so not interested in us, Dwayne looked at me, I looked at him, and we knew she was it. And then at the time, the president of Disney called after looking at all the auditions and was like, "I don't think there's any doubt it's Madison," who to this day, I just love her dearly. And she's just such a wonderful person. And it really was, that movie exists because of her and Dwayne. And we ended up with a brilliant, you get Kira Sedgwick and you get Morris Chestnut, and you just get amazing Rosalind Sanchez. You got amazing actors in there. But the 2 of them are the heart and soul. And she had everybody wrapped around her finger from like whatever she said, we were like, "You got it, Maddie."
I love that you said all that too, because it reminded me of the first time they meet and her complete indifference to Joseph's celebrity that he had. And he's like, "Oh, you're selling Girl Scout cookies? Do you want an autograph? Do you want some money?" And she just didn't care about any of that. It was amazing.
And that was, it's really fresh when you see that. We saw that with the wonderful Finley Slater, who was in Playing with Fire, who was 4, even younger. And she was with John Cena. She was with Dennis Haysbert. She was with Keegan-Michael Key and Judy Greer. And John Luke got excited when the dog was on. Got excited when pizza. Yet newer lines, better than anybody. Hit her mark better than anybody. And she would hit it one time, you were done. And the rest of the adults would be looking at me. I'm like, that is correct. Christian Convery, who played her brother, who's starring in Cocaine Bear. And he's the star of Sweet Tooth on Netflix. Amazing. And he had a fairly active resume leading up to it. And they bonded. And Brianna Hildebrand, who had been in the Death Pool movies. And she was like, when you see kids that can bond and not be affected by everything around them, and somehow it's the beauty of performances that they don't know enough about Hollywood that it really bothers them, or they think, what if this movie doesn't work? None of the stuff, they're just there. And for me, it's all about making it, I want them to be able to play. I want it to be a good time. When we were doing Game Planet, we were shooting over Halloween, and I felt horrible that Maddie and her stand-in and all the other kids would miss Halloween. So Genevieve Tyrell, our amazing costume designer, decked her out as Elvis, and they dressed all the other kids, and every department decorated their trailers as a different haunted house or a different Halloween. And the kids at lunch went trick-or-treating, and it was magical. And they had the best time. And I think that is I think that's just a really important aspect, that you want them to still be kids while making that movie. And I think having someone like Dwayne, having someone like John Cena, having those actors who love children so much, that makes all the difference in the world.
It means they'll have so many more special memories looking back on the film than just what it was like on set, but just what the actual atmosphere and how loved they were as well. Instantly, I must say, this isn't a question, but I would genuinely watch an entire movie of Dwayne Johnson having an allergic reaction to cinnamon.
By the way, just to be clear, I probably have enough of footage for an entire movie. Him doing, and that is one of those moments where, Dwayne was not a known comedic actor coming in to do this movie. And you have this whole bit about him getting an allergic reaction and cinnamon, and we're shooting and we're coming up with stuff for him to improvise. It's hard not to keep the crew from laughing on set. And because we shot it as a stand-up, as a, interview, we had to constantly tell everyone, myself included, stop laughing. And he would crack us up. And he was really, really genius with that.
He was the best. But on a sadder note, at one point, I understand he ruptured his Achilles. How did that affect the rest of the production?
Friday, we do our table read.
Right.
One of the best table reads it killed. Audience loved, studio loved it. And Saturday, we were going to do hair and makeup tests and our wraparound filming with some of our sports legends who are commentators. That Friday, they had one last football practice, and then everybody was going to dinner, big fancy dinner. I'm in the best mood because I feel we are going to shoot an amazing movie. I get a call that one of my actors on the football team snapped his Achilles heel. He was playing the really big guy. And I'm like, oh my God, I don't know how. And the coach is like, explained it. And I was like, it's horrible what it like. And he's like, it's going to take a long time for him to heal. That actor had a brother who also, the Duff brothers, John and Jamal, had also auditioned. And they were both ex-pro football players. And the director and me was like, oh, horrible. We're going to take care of him, but we'll just cast his brother in his role. And I then reversed it, and in Race to Witch Mountain, I cast the other brother. So I ended up having both Duff brothers. But, wow. But I'm like, all right, problem solved. And then I hear our coach Ellis, best sports coordinator in any film, any major sports movie, you'll see Coach Ellis did it. And he said, Andy, I need you to listen. It was so unusual what happened on the first Achilles heel snap that what I'm about to tell you is so beyond crazy because it's never happened. I was like, what? He said, Dwayne took a step back in practice and snapped his Achilles heel. Now I've learned everything about Achilles heel. Dwayne was sent, the Boston Red Sox were playing. We were in Boston. He went to the team doctors and they confirmed. He got on a plane that night and flew back to Miami to his doctors were all in Miami. I sent an email to everybody that made its way to Disney where I said, we're going to be fine. No problem. Everything's great. Business as usual. I talked to Dwayne that night, and Dwayne and I figured out we'd have to push the movie. But when you do a movie, the biggest thing is you can't shoot a movie, most movies, unless you're Avatar, Mission Impossible, Maverick, you have to be done before Christmas because you can't be carrying a cast and crew over the holidays. Economically not smart. So he and I just made up a date where we were like, okay, if we could start filming at this date, we would be done. And that date was going to be many months away from where we were. He's like, let's just keep on it. So I told everybody this is the date. And the people at Disney were amazing. We had to deal with insurance and everybody, but it was all about whether or not Dwayne could really do it. I put a whole plan together, which was Dwayne's face wasn't broken. His Achilles heel was. So if we have his helmet on, we can have a stunt double. His real life stunt double is his cousin, Tanawai, who's brilliant and looks just like Dwayne. And we would have used him anyway in things. And then we were working with the wonderful Boston Ballet, but it was a challenge. Like, what do we do? And so we had to release everybody, cast and crew, a handful of us, our DP, our first AD, myself, our production designer, producers, my assistant. We stayed in Boston because now we lost every location. We had to rewrite the script, and every other day I'd send an email to the cast and crew, super positive. We're going to make a movie, and please don't take another movie. Finally, it comes time for Dwayne, time to make a movie. Months have gone by. We had been told it would take a year for him to heal. Like, we were ahead of that by 6 months.
Wow.
And so Dwayne had to go get an X-ray. This is one of those medical miracles. This is Dwayne's strict health regimen. Dwayne pretty much cured himself. He was able to do it. And the doctors were amazed. Everybody was amazed. We set the football and stuff later, and got creative a couple of times with doubles, but we made the movie. So it changed everything. But it came at a part in my career where now when someone says to me, we have a problem, I'm like, no. I've been 2 days before filming and had my lead actor snap his Achilles heel and still make the movie 6 months later. That's a problem. What's your question? So now I do approach it like I've already handled that problem. Bring it. What do you got? What do you got?
Now, one curiosity I have when I watch films like The Game Plan is, how do you fill a stadium with people? Is it all extras? Do you go to an existing sporting event and make use of their audience and just film before or after the game happens?
So it was a little bit of movie magic. The Kraft family, who own the New England Patriots, generously were our partners. And so we got to film at Gillette Stadium. And we had a couple of other stadiums for other games. But what we would do is, in the beginning, what you need is bodies. So we would have open calls to get fans to come out, to be in the audience, to be in the cheer, and it was freezing. We would do giveaways every hour, like, look under your seat. If you're number 478, you want a TV. Then we get literally blow up people that are like balloon people, and you put them in.
You could have got me to do that.
I can be like, come, please.
Yeah.
Then you get what's essentially is tiling, where if you film a group of people, say you film 500 people, then we ask them to change shirt. They change their shirts, and they were rooting for the other team, and we move them down and swap them, film it. And then later, thanks to the miracle of CGI and movie magic, we can place those people in, and you can take 300 people and make 30,000 people in a blink.
That's amazing. Now I'm going to move on to 2009. You directed Race to Witch Mountain. I grew up in the 1980s, but I loved those original 1970s Witch Mountain movies. Were you a fan of them growing up yourself? And also, what is so special about that franchise? And by the way, I love that you brought it back.
Probably one of my favorite movies as a kid was Escape to Witch Mountain. And truly just loved everything about it. I loved Kim and Ike. I loved the story. I love it at all. And at the time we were finishing Game Plan, and Disney said they had an idea about wanting to do more in the Escape to Witch Mountain family. And I didn't want to make a remake, though I think that had been talked about, or maybe like they had done a version of it. I wanted to make a continuation of a story in the universe. And it was really important to me to have Kim and Ike. And I had to find them both, and I reached out. I was able to get contact, and both of them said the same thing, which was, well, if you could get Ike to do it, I might come back. And the other was like, oh, if you can get Kim to do it, I might come back. And so created characters that were, if you were a fan of Escape to Witch Mountain, you might think was them grown up. Made sure I had a mobile home. Got the wonderful Gary Marshall, who was a mentor of mine, to come play that great character. But we really worked hard on it feeling within the world of Witch Mountain. And Anna Sophia Robb was coming off Bridges of Terabithia, and I had seen it only at pretty much I met with her, and I was like, it's your part. And Alexander Ludwig was, long before he was Buff Viking, he was this amazing young actor, which he still is, and their chemistry was great. I loved Carla Gugino, and it was just a lot of fun, and I'm a big UFO enthusiast, so I wanted to get it grounded. Kieran Hines, one of the greatest actors of all times, sort of was, we were able to do that with him. Again, Tom Everett Scott and Chris Marquette and Billy Brown, just an amazing cast. And everybody was super supportive of our vision, which I just wanted it to be, if you loved Witch Mountain, you would enjoy it. If you didn't know Witch Mountain, you could still enjoy the series. And now Disney Plus is doing a new version where they're doing a series, and I'm excited to see what they do with that. So, but as a kid, that movie just captured my imagination, and I just love that it was kids out there. I'm very proud of it, and love that we had that opportunity, and we love the fans' reaction.
One thing I wonder, by the way, is, so obviously it's got a lot of action and special effects. How much of a learning curve is there, if any, going from directing comedy to this massive, ambitious sci-fi action adventure movie?
It's a lot of a learning curve. I had a lot of my same team that I had used in previous movies, and that helps tremendously. Having been a producer on Anaconda, I got a behind the scenes look at, doing an action fantasy sci-fi horror film. But the learning curve is, you're now building blocks every day for, how do you shoot the effect? How do you do that? Once coming through it, it really enabled me to do things like playing with fire and stuff where you could get more ambitious, because you were like, I've been there. I now have done all of those elements. I was lucky to have wonderful partners and teachers on Race that really helped me with it. But it's really about the design. You spend all your time making sure you have it look right, and CGI, and if you're acting opposite green screen, you have to be able to have a show and tell for the cast. What do they look? You can't just point and be like, you want to give them an image of what it is that's coming after them. So it was a great education.
Obviously, you worked again with Dwayne Johnson on the film, but can you tell me, were you thinking about that project during the game plan, or was it afterwards that you considered working with him on the second movie? How did he get involved?
I knew, you always, for me at least, once I have someone in my world, I'm just always, anytime I read a script, I'm like, who could this person be? Who could that person be? We had such a great time on game plan that I was hoping to find something, and said, when we were in post on it, is when Disney came to me and said, what do you think about this? And then I called Dwayne and said, do you know this movie? And Dwayne loved it as a kid. And then we were called back Disney, and we're like, Dwayne and I would both we both like that idea. And so I always love to, in the entertainment industry, you have to develop multiple things. I guess you don't necessarily have to, but if you don't, you're just going to wait sometimes a long time before your next project. So As a producer, I like to have lots of things going. My production company, Oops Donuts Productions, we're always looking at new material. And every time you get something, you go through your list of, would that be good for them? What about this? What about that actor? So it was just such a great experience that it was an easy yes.
Was there ever talk when the movie was completed about possibly doing a sequel with the same cast?
Every once in a while, every once in a while, those kind of conversations come up. I think you have to find the right. It's all about the script. It's all about, is there a reason why you get everyone back together again? And sometimes, you have something fun like the Oceans movies, and you're like, oh, I want to see them back together, or clearly a James Bond or a Mission Impossible or Avatar. Those movies scream to see it. The joy of seeing, for me, I was such a Top Gun fan, so when I saw Maverick 1,000 years later, it was just a treat to see these characters back together again. I'm so excited for the new Indiana Jones.
Right, yeah.
Because the day the first Indiana Jones came out, when Raiders came out and I was a kid, I saw that movie, I think 6 times in one day. I just kept calling my parents from a payphone. I'm going to stay. I want to watch it again. So I get excited about that. But then, you want the sequel. There be a reason to have a sequel for it to really matter.
I'm really excited about the Disney Plus series as well, and just that the universe gets to live on in any capacity. It's really great. And you're watching this and you haven't seen them, don't know what I'm talking about, watch Race to Witch Mountain and go back and watch the originals as well, because they're a lot of fun.
We put so many Easter eggs in. At one point, Eddie Albert, who was so instrumental in Escape to Witch Mountain, and he's the one driving the RV. At one point in the RV, you see Gary Marshall is sitting there, and there's an album of Eddie Albert Sings that I put so you could see it in the lens. So I love Easter eggs. I love moments where I have, in You Again, the wonderful Jenna Lee Green played Chandler when we were initially workshopping it. And as I said, Kristen Bell played Veronica. So I cast Jenna and You Again to be the stewardess, the flight attendant on the plane with Dwayne, and her name is Heather, and she's wearing a Heather name tag, just so I could have Kay Bell yell at her, "Shut up, Heather." And that moment for me was like, I'm good. I put that in the movie. I'm very happy. We do in Christmas Again. They're doing the dang dang diggity TikTok move in the kitchen. And I remember I had the girls do it, and I was like, this will just be for those Heathers fans who catch it just to see this moment. They know what it is.
The movie You Again explores what happens when a high school bully comes back into your life as an adult. But can you tell me, do you think that these people deserve a second chance and everyone deserves one, or do you think you should dump soup on their head?
It's a great question. When we were interviewing actors, and we had that cast, Sigourney Weaver, Betty White, Jamie Lee Curtis. This is just a brilliant,
incredible
cast. And every time we would start talking to actors about, did they have a bully? Everybody I met had a bully. And then we would begin to talk amongst ourselves about, isn't it interesting that I've yet to meet anyone who was a bully? I've only met victims. And then you kind of start realizing, maybe you don't want to admit, but maybe there's someone in your life that maybe thinks of you as their bully, or thinks of you, because it can't be a world full of victims, and there can't be only 4 bullies. So what I do love is the sense that there can be, when you get serious crime involved, it's a whole different world of talking about how somebody can be reformed or not. And when you get to the world of insanity like Hitler or all these great, I'd like to believe that racist people could be reformed, and I've read amazing stories. I'd like to believe that somebody who is homophobic could change, and I've heard stories. But at the heart, when someone gets older, can they look back at what they did when they were younger and acknowledge I was a shitty person? And can they have those? And I think I'd like to believe in humanity that is possible. When people, I've talked, some of my close dear friends, we've had long talks about periods where we were not close, and talked about, let me tell you why I didn't talk to you for a year. Let me tell you why for 1 year. Sometimes it's an acknowledgement of you're right. Sometimes it is, okay, that was a misunderstanding that just got blown out of proportion. Life is so short. Any amount of time you spend on hate and anger eats away at something in you. If you spent an hour thinking about something that happened 15 years ago that still bothers you, it's an hour less you could have been spending reading that book you took on vacation. An hour less you could have spent watching She's the Man. An hour less you could be spent listening to, an hour less you could go to a museum and create a new memory. So sometimes that's hard. We all make mistakes. We're human. And, you know, I'd like to believe that every day I'm a better person. I'm still going to make mistakes. I like to believe that people in my life have called me out on bullshit and been like, that wasn't cool. And you're like, you're right. And I think you, again, was a lot of that we were trying to talk about, was that could those characters, you know, could K-Bell and Odie, could those characters find themselves a new way of speaking? And Odette Annabelle is such a wonderful actress, and her and K-Bell just found those clicks. And then you'd put Jamie Lee Curtis and Sigourney Weaver together, and you would just, I'd sit back and marvel at these two, not only great actresses, but I just marvel at these two strong careers who are coming together and really didn't know each other that well. So that was sort of fun to do. So I'd like to believe that we send a message of hope. Same like Heathers. The end of Heathers, our message is look, high school's not ever going to go away. And we can't say that there won't ever be any more Heathers. But that final image on stage of a new group, an unexpected group, has only come together because of forgiveness, and has only come together because of mistakes made, no matter why they were made. So I feel, I guess it's a message I like coming back to from time to time. Joe Kingman at the end of Game Plan is a better person because he learned how to be a dad. And even there's a great moment in Parental Guidance where Marissa Tomei and Billy Crystal are having a conversation in the kitchen, and it's really about parenting and forgiveness. And I love shooting that scene, and I loved watching these two powerhouses perform it. And so, yeah, I'm an optimist where I can be.
I got all of your DVDs and Blu-rays that were available and just binge watched all of it and had the best time doing it. And I really loved, there's a Funny or Die clip with all of the cast, and their chemistry together was so great.
And thank you so much for saying that. That chemistry is so real. Like making that, you could have just done that without even the Funny or Die clip. You could have just put a camera on us filming, and that was every single day on set. One
thing I've picked up instantly just watching all of your movies is that continuously every single cast you work with says it's the most fun they've ever had on a set, and I think that's amazing.
That's probably one of the things maybe I'm the most proud of, is creativity is hard. You're asking people to bare their souls. You're asking people to know that whatever they're going to do is going to be captured forever. So before we move on, you got to be happy. And I think we're entertaining people. I feel very blessed to be that that's our job. We are not curing cancer. We are not on the front lines, fighting COVID. We are not in battle, giving us an opportunity to do what we do. Our job is to entertain, to create thought, to provoke an interest. And I think the only way to do that, at least from my end, is to create a universe in which it's a safe place to fail. You got to be able to say, Sarah, there's no bad delivery. Let's find the one that works, but you have to feel comfortable, and the cast and crew have to feel comfortable with everyone out there together.
Because with so many things, no matter what it is, because I've got a degree in animation, and so I'm kind of good at drawing, and I still do caricatures and painting and stuff in my spare time. And people sometimes see something that I've done and say, oh, you're so lucky that you can draw, I can't do it. And I'm like, well, you can do it. It's just that I've done it more than you, and I've learned some techniques you haven't. And sometimes I'll sit down and just show someone how to draw something basic, and then in a few minutes it looks really, really good. But sometimes if you try and learn an instrument, if you do something for that first time and you're like, I can't do this, then you can never do it. And if you don't give yourself that room to fail and just explore and maybe try something in a different way or learn from other people, then no one would ever get anywhere. And I think that's really, really important.
I think that's so true. When I was moving, I graduated from Texas Tech University in Lubbock, Texas, West Texas. And I was moving to LA, didn't know anybody, had 5 suitcases and probably $300 to my name. And my mom, doing what all moms and dads do, is sort of be fearful. My mom said to me, why do you think you can make it in Hollywood when so few people can?
Right.
She wasn't wrong. And my response was, well, somebody has to make it. Why can't it be me?
Yeah.
And that notion of the first time I give someone a script to read, and now I look back and think that was probably not a very good script. But if you don't give it to somebody, if you don't try, then you'll never learn and you won't know. And every time I screen a movie for somebody and I'm still getting notes, or the first time we do previews for an audience, for a show, for theater, I'm looking and I'm nervous. I am nervous. Like, I think this is funny. If I'm right, you're going to laugh. Yes, right there. Everyone laughed. Check. And then I think this is funny. And then crickets. No one laughs. And then the actor looks at me on stage with the uh-oh. And then you begin to try to figure out, where did we make the mistake? And like falling off a bike, the fear of getting back on again. You got to go try it again. And maybe you still don't get a laugh. And I think creativity, art, you having your show, you being a writer, you start with an idea and you hope this one's going to work well. And if you don't try it, you will never know. And you'll learn. But fear is such a debilitating factor in people's lives. And I think sometimes, sadly, fear keeps a lot of very talented people doing perhaps a job they don't really want to be doing.
Right.
My father was a geologist and a paleontologist for Shell Oil. And he had 4 kids to raise, or 4 kids to pay for. My mom was doing the raising. But he really wanted to act, so he did community theater. I think if my dad, and he was good, he was really good. I think if my dad at some point in his mind thought he could have made a career, but he's in Midland, Texas. There's no career in Midland, Texas, and he had a great job doing what he did, and he loved being a geologist, he loved being a paleontologist. But you see that sometimes probably what keeps people fearful of, like, I can't really go to LA and try this. I ask the question a lot of times if I'm talking to various classes or students, do you want to act or do you want to be a celebrity?
Right.
And it always shocks me how I always love the ones who are like, I want to act. I'm like, great, you can act anywhere for the rest of your life. You can act in community theater. You could do something small. You can act till you die. You want to be a celebrity, you're chasing a really dangerous rabbit, because celebrity is not acting. celebrity is something entirely different. We can be confused by it, but that's in this sort of scenario where you look at it and you're like, I love an actor when, or a writer or director or an artist, somebody who commits and they're just in because that's what they love doing.
Yeah.
And then something comes from that more than just, well, I hope someday I'm doing this because I want to be a celebrity, to me is a bad route.
I completely agree. I mean, it's one reason I love doing my show. If I'm speaking to an actor, director, comedian, musician, author, whoever it is, sometimes I get really famous people on my show. And so you may watch it because you're a fan of that person, but also if you're aspiring to get into the industry they're in, it must seem so intimidating when you see them do these flawless performances. But I like going back to a comedian's first time on stage, a musician when they're nervously sending out hundreds of demo tapes and get no reply, or the author that was rejected 50 times and then they kept going and did it 51 times and, they got a book deal. All that stuff is so important. And I think that if you try and compete with everybody else, then you're kind of doomed to fail a bit. But if you just compete with yourself, so we're saying about failing, if you just think about how you failed and really try and improve on the last thing you did. So if it's your last movie, if it's the last thing you drew or wrote, or your last song or whatever it is, try and improve on it in some way, learn a new technique, bring something new to the table every time. And all you can do is grow and succeed because you're beating yourself and then you're getting better at it, which in turn gives you more opportunities.
Yes, 100%, because all we can do is improve. And we're going to make mistakes, and then you figure out how do you fix it. But every job to me has a mistake. I think that you and I and others our mistakes are seen in front of people. Like our mistakes tend to be the public. And then also the public now, because of the internet, the public feels very comfortable letting us know your movie sucks, or lets us know, why did you do it this way? Or I would have cast so-and-so. Whereas the guy who works at Tesco probably does not get a lot of online saying like, I don't like your fruit selection, Tesco. And maybe someone writes a letter, but it doesn't generally become a massive conversation.
In several countries,
We do something and everybody's got an opinion about your movie. Everyone's got an opinion, and we're putting it out there, but that's one of the things. And it's hard. You almost have to have a thick skin because you have to say, okay, you're going to present it and say, here, world, here's my movie. And it used to be pre-internet, all you really were up against was critics, and they either loved you or they hated you. And critics, I feel my job is to entertain audiences. My job is not to entertain critics. And if they like it, cool, but I want audiences. That being said, now critics sort of take a sidebar because everybody who sees anything is a critic. Everybody wakes up, and I will never understand anybody who spends any time like negatively, like just writing about, I just want you to know I hate your show. And I'm like, why would you take the time? First of all, it won't change my life one way or another. Nope. It won't change my day. It won't change my show. Who did you write that for? Is it you just like, and then you start, sometimes I'll go and I'll check someone's like, someone will say something really mean and I'll just be curious. And I see, they spend a great deal of time just being negative online. And then I'm like, that's very sad for you.
Yeah.
That this is you're not getting paid for your negativity. So I don't know who wins in that.
Yeah, I've received some really abusive messages sometimes. And I'll look at the person's timeline and they've sent the exact same message to 50 people. And I'm like, okay, I'm not offending anymore. It's just, it's a reflection on them. And the people that know them in real life might not even realize they're doing it, but they may have had a bad day. They just take it out on literally anyone that's online, because there's kind of like a disconnect sometimes, isn't there? That you sort of forget that they're real people.
Yeah.
And especially with famous people, you might say that movie sucked or whatever, but if you've got, no matter who you are, if you've got thousands of people saying that, it takes a toll on you, and that person still has to get up and show up on set the next day.
Very hard. I've sometimes have responded to somebody, and then they were shocked that I responded and were like, "Oh, I didn't mean anything, but oh, I really love your," and I'm like, we're human. And the reality is nobody, I have, no one has ever shown me different. I know no one who has ever set out to make a bad film, a bad piece of theater, a bad television. People work their butts off to make something. Hundreds of people make that film. Hundreds of people make that TV show. Hundreds of people bring theater. So when you just casually go online and talk about how it's the worst and horrible, everyone should, you're talking about all these people's livelihood. You're talking about people spend a year of their lives, might not have worked. Sometimes art doesn't work. That's the nature of art. But those people who tirelessly go after somebody, it's almost like we see it worldwide with sports. I love sports. Yes, I can be watching sports on TV and can scream at the top of my, I can't believe you. We're here in the States, we're, in playoffs for the Super Bowl. Your favorite team gets out, you're bummed. There are people who will go online and talk with vitriol about, you're the worst. I'm going to kill you. I can't believe. I'm like, by the way, at their worst, they're 1,000% better athlete than you are at your best. And so how are you, what's the commentary? Somebody has to win a game and someone has to lose. So that doesn't mean the team that lost is just full of horrific players. It just means one team wanted a little bit more and played a little bit better that day. Nobody opens a movie and hopes that their movie isn't seen. They open their movie and hope people see it.
Yeah.
The fact that you and I are talking about She's the Man, or the fact that you saw Heathers and we've had a life in London since 2018 is a plus. In that time, lots of shows have come and gone. That doesn't make them bad shows. Right. It just meant their period, whatever it was, the alchemy of the stew coming together just didn't work at that moment.
And you know what? Films and music or whatever it is resonates with different people in different ways. There's been films that have been critically panned, and I've gone to the movie theater with the lowest of low expectations and just loved it. And equally, I've watched movies I didn't enjoy so much, but then I've gone and watched some extras or I've read an interview about it behind the scenes, that kind of thing, and fallen in love with the film because of what they did achieve. And, the battles they overcame to make it what it was, and it could have been infinitely worse, And so I think every piece of art or every performance has a story to it, and not everything will resonate with you. Not every film is for every person, but just find the things you like and don't spend all day shouting at the things you don't like.
Yeah. And, or go make it. Go make something yourself. Gary Marshall used to always talk about, probably one of the most successful film and TV individuals with everything he created and brought so much joy to people. And he would say sometimes the critics did not appreciate it, but he would say, no one goes to high school wanting to be a critic. They want to make something and then they don't. So then it's easy to sit at the typewriter and be like, cha-ching, cha-ching. No, let me tell you why it's wrong. And I'm always like, how about this? You go make a movie. Go do everything. You're so brilliant with all your commentary. Go make a movie. Because clearly you have all the things. It's like someone like, you're the best athlete in the world from your computer. Go try out for the team. Go try out for the team because you clearly are the best athlete or the best coach. You should be coaching. So it's everyone's right to have a commentary. It's everyone's right to have an opinion. I don't understand everyone feeling like it's their God-given right to let the world know why they hate something or someone so much when it comes to I'm just out here. You don't have to go see my movie if you don't like. I'm not your cup of tea. I read somewhere online just recently, someone sent me something that made me laugh, and it was, I'm not a fan of Andy Fickman's work, except for She's the Man. But I've seen him in interviews, and he's one of my favorite people in the world. And it made me laugh because I was like, oh, okay. You probably didn't need to say any of that.
No.
Or I don't know what the hope was.
It's a nice
there.
compliment. Oh, you only like me in real life? Thanks.
Yeah. We're probably still not going to become friends anytime soon.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that. I'm good with that.
Exactly. But, I think if a film critic had the perfect formula for every film that they supposedly watch, then they'd be the most successful director in the world. But I think it's really important to remember that no matter who you are, films just resonate with you in your own way. And if you don't like a film, then other people, fans of that genre, fans of the actors or the director, may still get something out of it that you didn't. I've been to press screenings before and seen journalists sat there half the time just writing, looking at their notepad. And I don't want to do that. I just want to know how the film makes me feel. Do I laugh? Do I cry? What are my emotions when I walk out of that movie theater? That's how good the film is.
I think what you're saying is amazing. I've had critics tell me off the record that sometimes they've written the review before they saw the movie because they knew they wouldn't like it. And I'm like, I'm mortified that you walked in with the attitude. I still love movies. I still love TV. I still love. Last night, my wife and I were getting caught up on 1923, and there was a moment, and we were both like, "Oh, I love that." And we're just fans. And so when you're just a fan, I think it's a privilege what we do. I think it's an honor what we do. I knock on wood and count my lucky stars. I'm still in a place to be able to do it. But I don't understand bringing the negativity into any of it.
Exactly. There's no need for it at all. And there's much better outlets for your energy. Right. And that's why my show is just celebrating stuff that I love. I only invite people on my show if I know I'm going to love what I'm going to be talking about or watching for an entire week.
I love it. I love your energy, Sarah.
And just supporting people that I love and things that I love. And it's a massive thank you, pretty much. We're going to go back to another movie now, if that's okay. Parental Guidance, we've spoken about a little bit. Billy Crystal, Bette Midler. Billy Crystal also served as a producer on the movie. I'd like to talk about a specific scene in a clothes store, which I found out by listening to the director's commentary was filmed while there were real shoppers just in the background. And I looked really hard. I paused it. There didn't seem to be any barriers or security guards stopping people from walking over to where these huge stars were. Did you get any interruptions throughout the filming of that?
We had so we were filming in a real mall and working with wonderful stores. There's always a little area where you say, this is where we're going to film. And off camera are probably our PAs and security, making sure that shopper doesn't come in. We have our own extras that are back there, but there were in the deep background where what was weird, we were filming that in an Atlanta mall. And one day, that morning, there was all of the security hubbub, and there was an active shooter there was a guy who was running through the mall with a gun. He hadn't been shooting, but he was running through the mall with a gun towards where we were. And we had to put everybody, the casting crew, we had to put them like in back rooms, and we had to stop shooting or start our filming. And while it would all be taken care of. And then the police were like, all right, we arrested him. And then we had to come out. Everyone was like, okay. So we're filming in a real mall. And that scene when we were going up and down the elevator, or the escalator, I should say, we've got our cameras, but there are people shopping all around. Atlanta is a great town to film in. So, but that was definitely... That day, I will never forget the insanity of guy running through the mall with a gun.
Wow. And is it true you had to digitally remove some of the extras that didn't hear you shout action?
Yeah, there every once in a while you have to, it's very hard because if you have people way in the back and you yell action, I always call it the frozen effect. They're like holding their position, and then you've gone action and they're like still holding, and then they might look around and then start doing their thing. So every once in a while you have those moments where you're like, no, let's make sure when I yell action, everybody moves at the same time. And every once in a while, I think you get some local shoppers who the goal is not to look directly at the lens, and they come in and they're just looking straight at the lens, and you're like, that is creepy. That is not helpful.
So now I want to talk about Paul Blart Mall Cop 2. So you joined the second film, of course. Can you tell me, is there any challenges in joining an existing franchise and keeping the tone of it, but also adding your own flavor and your own voice to the production as well?
One of the most challenging things. My son and I loved the first Mall Cop, just loved it. And the producer, Todd Garner, who's amazing. I've known him for a long time. We've done a lot of work together. I didn't know Kevin James. I didn't know Adam Sandler, who was producing. I just knew I loved that movie. And they called, and I read the script, thought it was fun, liked all of the stuff involved. I had worked with Rainey Rodriguez on an episode of Austin and Ally, so I liked her. I knew her. But you are coming into Happy Madison is an amazing company that does all of Adam's movies, but it is a machine. Like, that's why they are so what they do. And so I came in, I didn't know Kevin. Kevin didn't know me. We didn't know our personalities or anything. And it was the first movie I ever did where I was coming in to something that was already established. And It's hard because you are trying to find your way around, like, what worked the first time, what doesn't work, and how can I do it? So first couple of weeks were challenging because it really was me trying to figure out what to add and do. Once Kevin and I connected, I already had Todd as a great partner, but once Kevin and I finally connected, had a blast making it, and loved, and Adam said everybody involved was great. But there were a couple of weeks of me like, it's like being a transfer student at a school where you're like, everyone's laughing at something. You're like, I don't know that joke. I don't know this joke. I don't know anything. But we had a blast.
That obviously comes across on screen, and we've spoken about this too, but you went on to work with Kevin in his stand-up special and Kevin Can Wait and the crew. What do you love about working with him so much?
Genuinely one of the funniest people I've ever met, and genuinely a kind human being. And he's the everyman. And his comedy is not mean-spirited. His comedy is just funny. And what we see, we got to see him just recently on tour. And new comedy, and the audience is going crazy, and I love it. But on set, I think he and I can make each other laugh about 24/7, and half the time having nothing to do with what we're filming. We just like to see if we can make each other laugh. And so we have whole bits that no one else understands, but Kevin and I think they're very funny.
Have you got more plans to work with Kevin in the future?
Always. Like everything, every script I come across, I go through my list of, would this be good for Kevin? Maybe this is Christian. Oh, maybe this is Dwayne. Oh, maybe, like, I do that with every piece of material. I can't imagine, it's a one and done type thing. It's always just trying to find the right project.
Now, next I want to talk about Playing with Fire. I was lucky enough to go to a press screening of that in London. Lots of fun. John Cena has such great comedic timing, doesn't he? And obviously he would have perfected that a little bit, being in the WWE for so long and working with live audiences. But his delivery, his physical comedy as well, superb.
His physical comedy is so smart. He understands his persona. And I think for most comics, whether it's Kevin James, whether it's Billy Crystal, but most people, what makes them great at what they do is understanding their delivery. You can't teach comedy. You just can't. You can teach a technical aspect of it. You can help them achieve, take the pause here. You can help them, you can try something, but innate comedy you're born with. And John Cena innately is funny. Nicest guy on the planet, so sincere, is there to be a part of the team, not a diva, not anything, feel separate. And he elevates everyone around him to be there, but he is just straight up funny and is fearless. And I don't know if that's from WWE or just him in life, but comedy is about being fearless. Comedy is, hey, there's a wall there, can you run into it? And not thinking too much about it, but thinking, how would I run into the wall? That's the comedy hook. He's got it for days.
He really has. And the film features smoke jumpers and helicopters and buildings on fire. Were there any scenes that were legitimately really dangerous to film?
A lot of them, the cabin, when he comes into the cabin where the kids are, that is a cabin that we have burned and that is on fire. So we have our gas flames we're going to add, but it's on fire. And we had all of the fire department and firemen around making sure the kids were okay, but he's being lowered down a crane, has to unravel, has to go get the kids. A lot of those things were dangerous. When he parachutes in, he's up on a high crane being lowered, and all of those things are the stuff that any number of things could go wrong, and he was great. So those are maybe the things that I'm the most anxious about. I'm always looking on the schedule, like, when is that? Because those scenes I just want to be done with. I just want to be like, everyone got out safe and sound and we got the shot. I tend to, if I can get the shot one time and it's great, move on. No reason to keep pushing your luck.
No, absolutely. Don't improvise with fire.
That's right.
It's a good way of doing it. Have you got a favorite scene or just moment from that production?
Well, there's a moment where we had all the cast and Keegan and John Leguizamo, they're in the firehouse, and the kids are kind of getting to know the chief and everything, and all of them. Keegan and John were so brilliantly crazy funny. Every take after take was a completely different one. At one point, we had I just let them loose, and Keegan is jumping up on furniture and legs is flying around. It was amazing. I could have watched that all day.
Now, can you tell me, if you were in a triple threat match with The Rock and John Cena, who would win and what would your wrestler name be?
My wrestling name would be Please Don't Hurt Me. And I think my job would be, if I could make the two of them laugh, I'd have a chance to at least survive. And then I would try to get out of the way and let the two T-Rexes just run into each other. And then I'd just be in the corner.
Just let them exhaust themselves, collapse.
So
neither one can win and then pin both. Yeah.
Parenting is all about wearing out your children. And at an eventual moment, they just hit exhaustion. And that's when you can declare victory. So yeah, that would be my only way to win against either of them.
I love that. So today, in fact, I watched Disney's Christmas again. I'd never seen it before, found it on Disney Plus in the UK. Highly recommend it. Such a great concept for a movie. I don't know why it hasn't been done by now. You know, you wish it's Christmas every day. There's songs about that. How much fun was that to do for you? And also, I must ask, how much of a challenge is it filming a time loop movie? And do you film it sequentially, just from the start of the script to the end? Or do you take every scene and film every possible variation of that scene so it's easier to reset?
We loved it. The biggest challenge was we filmed it in Chicago at the height of the pandemic when there were no vaccines. So that's a challenge. Every day was are we going to go to work today, or is someone going to have COVID today?
Right.
I love the movie Groundhog Day, one of my favorites. So I'd always been interested in time loops. Christmas Carol is probably my all-time favorite book. So I love the notion of that sort of, can someone, like we were saying about you again, can someone change? We did try to take advantage of filming somewhat in block shooting. So if we knew that we were going to be opening up the presents, our goal was, it was easier for the actors to remember they're just sitting there. This is where I sat. And every time I'm going to hold this can up, it's easier to do it right that day than it is to come back to it 4 days later. Sometimes we had some wardrobe changes we needed to do. And as her character was learning and she was making adjustments, it meant the scene would adjust. But for the most part, if we could film a scene from head to toe, this is how Christmas dinner goes. This is how that was the easiest way to do it.
Can you tell me how many penguin alarm clocks got destroyed on set?
This is the only one left. And my daughter comes in every day and grabs it. And I know she'll be the next one to break it. It's a great question. We probably destroyed 15, 20. We had a brilliant prop department who was ready to go, but the only one that survived was that one, and I made sure it came home.
If you could relive any day of your choosing on loop for as long as you wanted, what would it be?
Oh, that's so hard. Probably a day with my dad. If I could relive a happy time with my dad, and that would be worth everything. I'm blessed that I have an amazing wife and I have two brilliant, amazing children, two great dogs, good family, good friends. That is the element of my life that is incomplete. And losing him at such a young age really challenges it, because he has no connection to my high school, college, career years. Never got to meet my children, never got none of that. So having a chance to just spend a day with him, that I would relive that over and over again.
That was kind of what my answer was too. Actually, I was thinking about this earlier because I lost my dad in 2017 and my mum died in 2020, and I was working out what the last date, and I last saw both of them. So that would have been my answer too. I
think any of us, and I'm sorry for your loss, I think any of us who have lost a parent, and so many people do, but when we lose parents at younger parts in our lives, you feel this thing. Now, my mom is 92 and kicking on, and she's a brilliant, strong, smart woman and keeps us laughing. So she's been able to see the journey. But losing a parent is just a gap, because, no matter what, there's a handful of people in our lives that we want to be proud of us. And I always believe my dad is watching every day. I believe that my dad is with me. I look for signs, but it's trying to please our parents, right? It's trying to be like, look, Dad, I look what I'm doing. Particularly for me with my dad, because without my dad, I don't know if I ever would have had a love for what I do. So those challenges for all of us are probably reflective in our art, reflective in the stories we tell, reflective in the type of stories we want to tell, how we respond to a movie. All of that, I think, goes a long way.
Absolutely. And I think that they live on to not only through your memories, but how they inspire and inform the rest of your life too.
Yeah, very true.
Now, I was going to ask if you keep any props or souvenirs from any of your movies. Obviously, I can see at least one behind you now, but do you have something from each production you've worked on?
I have many props from each production I've worked on. I love a lot of them are not around. I mean, I have a scrunchie. Um,
Amazing.
I do have I mean, pretty much I have somewhere there is a prop of from every movie that I've worked on, because I love a little keepsake of knowing that's my memory.
I love that. And so here's a question that I ask every guest on the Sarah O'Connell show. Can you tell me a fun fact about you, something we may not know, a hobby, a party trick, something like that?
When I was learning to snap, I watched how people snapped, and it always ends like that, right? They would snap here and their thumbs would go there. And when I was a kid growing up and choir and all the things, everyone was snapping and I could not figure it out. And so I just kept practicing what I thought was correct. And so now this is my snap. Just this thumb and finger. That's probably the biggest party trick I have. At some point, someone's like, you don't snap right. And I'm like, I don't snap right. And almost every picture of me has a hat on, and everyone thinks I'm bald. And then I take my hat off at some point, and people are like, what? Why do you have hair? And I'm like, I don't know, I have hair. Those are probably the fun fact. I was the court jester at the Texas Renaissance Festival for 5 years, where for 5 years I destroyed the English accent, but was a court jester and had the best time of my life.
I love that. I mean, I still instantly cannot snap my fingers myself, but I can wiggle my ears, so I feel like that kind of cancels it out, although it's a bit less noisy.
But I understand, but somehow and I still every once in a while try to snap, but I'm like nothing, and I have no idea about
Same.
that. No problem.
I need to try your technique. I think that's resonating with me a lot more. Seems to make a lot more sense.
I want you to practice this. The more you practice, it'll work.
I mean, to start with, I can feel like I'm going to snap my nails off, but apart from that,
yes, you might need to remove the nail.
I think I will the first time I try it. Now, a lot of your movies feature dance sequences, but can you tell me what your favorite one has been to direct?
Dance-wise?
Yeah.
I love in Reefer Madness, we had some amazing dance sequences. We had one with Kristen Bell and Alan Cumming and Nev Campbell that was just so much fun. We had down at the old Five and Dime, we had a big weird marijuana orgy that we had so much fun. Marianne Kellogg choreographed and was just brilliant. Big tap dancing prison cell number. I would say almost every day on Heather's making on Reefer Madness making the movie, when I had a big dance sequence, I was in heaven.
If you could make a sequel to any one of your movies or TV shows, what would it be?
It's a good one. You know, I don't know. I guess the cheat question is, I could probably make an argument for every movie and TV show that I'd like to see where those characters are 10 years later. Like that sometimes always interests me, is like, whatever happened to you? I don't have an idea where I'm immediately like, oh, I'd like to see that. But I think all of them, I love those characters that I'd want to get a chance to see them again.
Is there anything more that you can tell us about One True Loves?
I can't wait for people to see it. It is, if you haven't read the book by Taylor Jenkins Reid, read the book. It's so heartwarming, and I can't wait for people to see it when it comes out. And honestly, the cast was just a delight, and dealing with that question of, can you have more than one true love in life? Is that possible? And I think for I love the idea that for me, the answer is yes. And I love that this movie celebrates it. It's very much a dramedy, leaning into the drama and the romance. I can't wait for people to see it, but I really, really, I loved every minute of that, and the cast, and really the message behind Taylor's book. I just was very taken with.
Can you tell us anything else you might be working on or is in the pipeline for the future?
I'm getting on a plane in a couple of days to go to London to, as I said, we're going to get Heather's the tour going, and Heather's a new this, but we're doing MT Fest at the other palace, and the Heather's team, Kevin Murphy and Larry O'Keefe, we have a new amazing brand new musical called Dark Lord, based on Jamie Thompson's books that are great, that I think are brilliant, and we're going to give everyone a sneak peek at it, and I'm so thrilled with that. And while I'm there, we're working on our 13 going on 30 musical, which is spectacular, and we're hoping to have news soon about that. And another new musical that I've been workshopping in London called Halls, which is about freshers, the first sort of year in school. And I've been very blessed with the relationship at the other palace, and Paul Taylor Mills and Bill Kenwright, who have given us so many opportunities. So I'm looking forward to that. And then I am sure at some point this year, I'll be back behind a camera.
It's very exciting. Have you got any tips, by the way, for anyone that's thinking not only of getting into directing, but specifically directing comedy?
I wish I had this. Everybody now, there are so many apps you can put on your phone. There are so many directing apps, there's so many camera apps, so many editing apps, music. Pick up that camera and shoot something. And if you're trying comedy, I'm on TikTok every day. I'm on Instagram. I'm looking and I'm laughing. And if I find someone who makes me laugh in 2 minutes, click follow. That to me is where the next great directors are going to come from, is that the world is their playground and they should be out there. Again, going back to what we've said about fear. If you're afraid to pick up this camera, shoot something and post it, this is probably not the industry for you. If you're okay posting and posting and posting and posting, you're going to find a rhythm, you're going to find a voice, you're going to find an audience. And that to me is amazing.
That's such great advice. Thank you. My final question, have you got any messages for people watching the Sarah O'Connell Show and your fans around the world?
First of all, keep watching the Sarah O'Connell Show. I have been interviewed by about 1 billion different people, and Sarah O'Connell is rock star worthy. It's an amazing show. Keep watching. For the people around the world, love and peace. Love and peace. And if we can throw in laughter, that's not a bad way to be either. And I wish everybody a wonderful 2023.
Well, Andy Fickman, has been an absolute honor chatting to you about all the incredible movies and musicals that you've worked on. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you for having me. It's truly an honor. And thank you for seeing Heather's. And thank you for watching all those movies. You make it fun.
And I very much look forward to watching your forthcoming movies and seeing Heather's again. And you're welcome back on my show anytime at all.
I will come and I will say, I want to be on the Sarah O'Connell Show now.
And you will be welcome. And I will stop whichever interview I'm doing and I'll interview you instead.
Thank you very much. I wish you well.
Thank you so much. And thank you to everybody watching at home. Be sure to share, subscribe, give this video a big thumbs up and leave lots of lovely comments. And I'll see you all again soon for another episode of the Sarah O'Connell Show. Bye.
Bye. Sarah, that was great. What a wonderful, I really loved it. And I look forward to talking to you again.
Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. Take care. Bye.
Bye.